2017, it started to really run on different dynamics as far as half-life of, well, so to speak, half-life of the Bitcoin system, in which that people were expecting a halving event that would raise the price. But there were a lot of other things that were supposed to happen during that time as far as loan use. When I was in Taipei in 2013, when I was asking people like on the streets in Taipei, and I feel that you get a different perspective if you ask somebody in Vietnamese or Chinese as far as, because they live in a different world, right? They live in a different system. The amount of information that they have is different than the amount of information that we have. So I was interested as far as asking the Chinese, like, what do they think about Bitcoin at that time? And what I was getting at that time was, I could use it as far as, transferring my money from me to you via USB or over our phone or something like that. But am I comfortable doing that? Am I not? The most optimistic people were in Singapore because they felt that, number one, the banks are looking for a solution like this. But unfortunately for the more liberty-minded of us, it was expected to be pilloried with payment gateways, which would kind of reduce the liberty aspect of it. And when I interviewed Bill Still in the beginning of 2014, I asked him point blank, and I said, is Bitcoin basically a financial cover for a global financial panopticon? And he completely danced around the question and never even answered. And then we found out that after that, that Bitcoin was nowhere as anonymous as what a lot of people thought, which is what I had my own opinions as far as how really anonymous Bitcoin was at the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. So that's the road that we've been on. So actually, Bitcoin has not achieved its aim to do what that $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 price tag was claiming that it was going to do. So those are the problems that need to be fixed first. Now, is it going to be Bitcoin? Is it going to be something else? It's another question entirely, Mac.
To be determined. Yes, that's a great answer. Right. I like that. All right, so let's jump into Relex. For those who are viewing, what is Relex? And can you touch on the passive income, the equity stakes, and the proxy ownership of Relex development?
Okay, well, I think we need to redefine that as far as we don't use that kind of terminology because our concept is actually a little bit different. Those are very common questions you ask. So let me get into that. So at its core, Relex development, or Relex itself, is the world's first real estate development cryptocurrency. Okay. It enables investors and developers to basically pair together and to find each other and to work with each other in an easier way. Okay. In which that you are able to satisfy a lot of concerns on the investor side as well as satisfy concerns on the developer side. Now, I think it's pretty clear that what the investors want, that they want better deals, they want better integrity in the deals, they want better access to the deals, they want ease, they want usability. I think for basically that's clear. Now, we're at the Belarus Real Estate Developers Forum, so we're talking with developers all day. And what we're finding is very, very interesting. I've talked with one developer that said it took him 6 months to open up a bank account in the UK.
Wow.
6 months.
Yeah.
I can tell you stories in other countries in which that it would take weeks for one step of the process. As far as you found the investor, you want the investor to send the money over to the developer, but it's an FDI transaction and it's not in what I call the Big Ten. The Big Ten are essentially US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Japan. These countries are quote unquote the trusted countries, okay? If I send from the US to Canada, the US to the UK, or just within that web of those 10 countries, the bank will essentially say, Thank you for your wire transfer. Thank you for your business. Would you like to do another wire transfer? Would you perhaps like to wire another 25,000 on top of that 100,000, sir? Right? Completely different feeling. If you are in Belarus and you're looking to wire money to the U.S., if you're in the U.S., you're looking to wire money to Japan, Vietnam. If you're looking to, in the U.S., you're looking to, God forbid, send money to Cambodia, okay? If you're looking to access a project that's doing very, very well, that has better returns than you're going to get in the U.S., UK, Germany, and so on and so forth, and you want to send your money to Myanmar, good luck. Good luck. Because your bank is going to constantly call you, yeah, remember how we told you that the requirements was going to be XYZ? Sorry, I need to add a XYZ ABC infinity to that. Can you come to my office and bring your second mother's, deceased ancestry, chart from the 1900s and bring it with your, all these other requirements? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. That is the real reason why Relex was founded in the first place. That in my experience in the private equity sphere, I could not believe that even the large investors had a lot of paperwork and a lot of hassle to do in order to handle this when it didn't need to go that way. When we introduced this facilitation mechanism and made things easier while also being compliant with the laws, we're simply leapfrogging past outdated legal frameworks and more importantly, outdated banking frameworks. Think about the technology that we all have. And think about the fact that we're still using SWIFT. It still takes 2, 3, 4, 5 days to clear the money. Yeah. The banks have been so comfortable in the sense, we don't need to innovate. So that's good, because that allows players like us to come along and to innovate that. It doesn't need to be like that. So we took that idea and we realized that if we're working with a ERC token or an equivalent, okay, when you start building upon that, okay, you realize that you can do things that Bitcoin can't do, because you basically need some unanimous vote amongst all the Bitcoin stakeholders as far as, I want to add this function on top that's going to aid real estate development. Well, what? We're not going to agree to that, because then every industry would come in and say, I want you to add this to Bitcoin. I want you to add that to Bitcoin. I want you to add this and this and this and this, right? Yeah. So the beauty of it is that you have the ERC token along Vitalik Buterin's original concept. And I was aware of Ethereum when it was less than $1, okay? When, Goldman Sachs was first announcing that it was going to be moving into Ethereum. And I thought, oh boy. I mean, I knew where things were going when I heard that, okay? But the original purpose that unfortunately has not really been utilized as much in a perfect world it would have been, okay, is that Vitalik Buterin's original concept of colored coins, where the result would not be basically 300 or 500 equivalent, identical ERC tokens that all look the same, smell the same, act the same, but they have different names and they have different teams behind them. And instead, you have ERC tokens that do this but don't do that. We have do this but don't do that, okay? Things like that we can embed technology into one of our partner banks so that the bank account is actually able to report back and to give the investor an idea exactly what's going on with the developer. When the developer agrees to that sort of thing and says, you know what, I will let you know where your money is going to. If I send money to a building material guy that I know, I'm going to make sure that you know when it was withdrawn, and in the right countries where we can do this, have the building materials guy also have his own address. So you send a crypto address to crypto address, you know where the money's going. One of the biggest risks of real estate development is the money gets over, it's a great project, the ROI is great. Actually, you know what, the building will go up, okay? On the surface, everything's great. How much money was lost in the sense that the developer overpaid to the building materials guy, the developer overpaid to the subcontractor, the developer overpaid to his furniture guy, right? And the investor, once he hands over the money, has absolutely no stake in what happens after that. This is the reason why people play it safe, and they're like, well, I'm only going to send my money to the US or the UK or Australia, but guess what? It happens in these countries too, and you have no way of knowing. You as an investor call up let's just say, I don't care if it's Bank of America or if it's Vietcom Bank or if it's in Vietnam or if it's Maybank in Malaysia, I don't care where it is. You call them and you say, I think the developer did something with my money. Can you tell me where this money went to? I mean, is the money still in the account? Is it not? Do you think the developer is going to tell you, Mac?
Yeah.
So, sorry, the bank account. The bank is not going to tell you. You
Exactly.
and say, well, it's my money. I put it there. The bank will say, is it in your account? You'll say no.
Exactly.
Can't give you any information what's going on with the account. And then it goes into all this, and basically it's a very opaque system. So basically, in a very, very simple way, we take the opaque banking system and say, how would you like better access to investors and have a higher transparency and accountability score? Does that sound good? Okay. Then we need these transactions to be more transparent, more public, so the investors can see where this money is going. When they see where the money's going, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable, and then you're going to have a quicker time to investment, better disbursement, and then you have the proxy developers with you as well. And that's the thing. When you passive returns, passive investment, there is no passivity in Relex, because each investor is a proxy developer. Each investor, which we call proxy developers, are essentially, I'll give you an example. We're working on a university in Myanmar. We're working on a yacht port in Vietnam. Two very, very different projects, okay? One of them counts for sustainable floating business materials. That's really not been done too much in the world. But then if you look on the other side, and if you just copy what the old brick and mortar generation did, then you're going to have a situation where you have 150, 160 yachts. Just it's a disaster. As far as there was a hurricane that went into Italy, and there were billions and billions of dollars. That
We lost you there for 1 second. Let the connection come back in. Are you there? Okay, we're back.
What you might want to do is okay. So you lower building materials, you lower the cost of that, but more importantly, you lower the transactional costs too. When we were in Belarus, we told developers how cheap or how flexible that they could price their units with us as opposed to other partners as far as agents and brokers. Couldn't believe it. And they said, how? And they said, look, when we run technology like this, and when we don't need to apportion so much resources to get the transaction done, guess what? There's a lot of benefits that can be had. I'll tell you right now that there is offers for real estate units that are well over 10-15% of the asking price, okay? Which means that there's a jib, there's a cut for the broker, right? That's a pretty fat cut that inevitably the consumer has to pay, right? And if they're using the antiquated system, well, they can't really escape out of that fee system. It's like, I pay some fees, I pay no fees. How about bringing fees down to like almost zero, okay? Like U.S. Federal Reserve rates kind of commission, you brokers that, you tell agents that, and they can't believe it. They said, how? And, you say, this is happening, and it's not just a concept, it's a practice now. And so it's really, really, yeah. So, Artem's coming back here. Why don't you say hi? Just sidle up a little bit right here.
Yeah.
Artem just finished the speech over here in Minsk, and it would be fantastic, Mac, for you to. I know I'm impromptu, right? But you can ask Artem a question since he's here.
Yeah, nice to meet you, by the way. Finally,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what was your speech about? What were you talking about?
Well, you're aware of our plan to adopt this model in this region as well. So we were looking for trial for a region, for a country rather, which will allow us to do that, to test, to pilot easily with the proper environment. And in Belarus, we are likely to have found this country, because with Russia, and we're still doing stuff there. So, of course, we just central bank just by the way responded.
The central bank
We
responded.
were with the channel, yeah.
Okay, okay.
But it's much
Wait,
time.
Central
Russia,
Bank of Russia.
huh?
Central Bank of Russia.
Correct.
Yeah. But the Russia itself, it's a huge country, which is diverse in terms of their understanding of the process. So they don't know exactly how to regulate this process on the scale of the whole country. So basically, one region is doing one thing, other region is doing different stuff, and Belarus is much more centralized. And how to say? To regulate. Initiative, yeah, goes from up. It had like all over the place, and the environment now with what they approved, and that's very favorable, very easy to upload.
Very good reason why we're in Belarus. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see. Um, that's big news. That's big. That's big. Um, yeah, that's one of the things that I was curious about, and I've always, when I was looking at relics, I see the Russia connection. I see Central Bank of Russia, um, and relics. It's quite interesting. I remember speaking to JT about this, and I was, I was like, wow, how did this come to be? How did you guys have that connection? But it's really interesting.
Yeah, I
Really
would
interesting.
here this scaling process will be much faster. So from here on to the other countries of the region, of Central European region as well, we'll just start. We will have like a much smoother start here, because all the processes here are working. They are real. They don't like this bureaucracy doesn't weigh on us. So we feel much more, feel a lot more freedom.
But this isn't a free for all here
Yes,
either.
yes.
We had
So
to
at the
pass
same time,
their muster, and we had to be something that was a model that they thought was going to fit for their country. So this is not a Malta, you know. It's a
Yeah.
very case by case, and there's a case that if we scale out and we're able to benefit the national and regional economies, then very different consideration as far as what we're allowed to do here.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's very powerful stuff there, man.
Right?
You
Good things,
guys
and
were
also the lady that you saw, unfortunately, before our connection went out, you're looking at essentially the new president of Relex Belarus. So I would like to welcome
wow.
Oksana onto the team in the official capacity.
Wow. Awesome. Big things, man. Big things.
Of course, she is an inspiration, not only to Artem, but to me. And Peter Lee is, blown away with how much she's been doing in such a short amount of time. So very, very happy. Yes.
Unprecedented.
Yes, Oksana is a human steamroller. We love her.
Awesome. Keith, I want to talk about the United Nations internet government.
Okay.
So what took place there? What was the main objective of that whole event?
Okay. The main objective of that event is what we actually promoted was Relex infrastructure. We did cover Relex development, but I would say the hot button items there was how we can help out national countries with their infrastructure projects. In in the Middle East, in Africa, and there were some conversations with some other places as well. In terms of project specific, as far as what was like the hot hits, what was the home runs, the people at the UN were very interested in learning more about the university that we are working on the proxy developer platform, as far as designing, developing it out, getting the master plan ready. And then once the master plan is submitted to the government, we have like the stamp of approval from the Myanmar government, then we open that up for funding. So that's when the university would move from the proxy developer platform, because there's two. There's a proxy developer platform, there's a funding platform. The proxy developer platform prepares the projects, does the design, gets everything to the master plan stage. The government puts the stamp on the projects in the master plan phase, and then it moves on to the funding stage from there. So they were very, very interested and excited the fact that we would be able to bring to fruition the university in Myanmar. I would say that would be the number one, kind of hot button item at the UN. However, at the Belarus Real Estate Developers Forum, projects like Coco Bay was the hot item, and projects like the FLC Yacht Port in northern Vietnam, in Thanh Hoa province, was really, really the hot item. So what we're learning here is that what the developers want, what the developers really zoom in on, and what they kind of blow over is completely different from the UN crowd, right? So we really, really hit the nail on the head in terms of Relex infrastructure at the UN. Whereas the big home run here was at its core as far as Relex development here.
Awesome. Keith, I want to talk about Woodfine Capital. How important is Woodfine Capital projects to Relex? How close is that partnership?
Okay, so Woodfine Capital Projects, for those of you that are new to this, Woodfine is our Canadian fund partner that works on developing real estate in the form of different kinds, as far as you have industrial, you've got big box retail, you've got office buildings and things of that like. And that gets rolled out in terms of real estate development in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So 3 countries. And that comes by way of the limited partner units and the common shares that we only talk about further on a requested consultation. Okay. But what I will tell you, as far as importance to it, it brings the broker dealers to the table. It brings the financiers over at Wall Street who are they're in the groove, they're in the ring, and that's the way that they want to participate. Because out of our U.S. investors, I would say that something like Coco Bay is more difficult to convince them of, rather than Woodfine is, it looks like, smells like, and sounds like exactly what they're looking for. And quite frankly, products like Woodfine make the regulators a lot more comfortable with us as well. Because if we are top Woodfine, there's only so much that we could do before we would. We always need to conduct ourselves in a way that we maintain the mandate that we agreed to with Woodfine. So it really, really keeps us in the regulatory camp as far as the U.S. is concerned. I think that there are some good breakthroughs that are coming with that. But I think that I have to admit that, I may be the one behind a lot of things, but I have to say that the reason why crowdfunding is happening is, and I have to give credit where credit's due, comes to Peter Woodfine, the man himself.
Okay. That's awesome.
So that's really how things get done. Now, in the world of Wall Street, is completely different than the world of Minsk Street or Vietnam Wall Street or all different places. The bar for accession to these sorts of things can be extremely high, and it is not designed to be easy to find. So it's just a very, very good thing that we found the right partners that keep the regulators comfortable with us, but also they have the expertise on how to actually get crowdfunding done. So I feel very grateful. I feel grateful for the partners that we have, because something like this is 100% a team effort. That's kind of why that I wanted to bring Artem in, kind of why I wanted to bring Oksana in. I don't ever want to give a feeling in Relex that this is just a one man at the top operation. It's really and truly a teamwork organization all the way through and through. And I think that that also reflects why, since Relex started, virtually almost nobody has left us. We've had almost no turnover. And I think that there's a reason for that, because not only do we work as a team, but we imbue ourselves with a sense of purpose and we know what we're working towards. And I think that's very important in an organization.
Awesome. Keith, let me ask you this question. When I think of Relex as an investor, right? What should I take to mind? Now let me try to explain this question a little better. So, for example, like VeChain. When I think of VeChain, I think of PwC, I think of DNVGL, I think of Bright Food Groups, I think of BMW, I think of China. Okay, so and this is very important for like those in the cryptocurrency space as investors. Is I always say, who are you networking with? Who are your partners? And you touched on that a little bit. But so going back to this, so when I think about Relex, I think about Relex like Russia or Vietnam or Peter Woodfine. When I think about Relex, what should come to my mind?
Oh, you want like a picture in your mind as far as like where's
you know how, like, for example, like I use VeChain, people will tie in, okay, PwC, DNVGL, their partnerships and all these things, because during like a bear market like we're in right now, people get scared, and is this cryptocurrency or token, however you want to put it, is it gonna last? So when I think about Relex, and for someone who wants to get it behind Relex as an investor in the cryptocurrency, what would give me like the peace of mind? So what gives me that security?
You ultimately need to make up your own mind on that, and I'm not the one to tell you that, but I will tell you what I think when I think of Relex as far as everything that we're doing. What is one of the central underpinning dynamics? I have a couple things.
Okay.
People say if you build it, they will come. We like to say, if we come, they will build it.
All right, I like it.
That's number one. Number two, regarding how big or how small a entity is, it always reverts to the mean. Or what I mean is this: you have a big or growing company for an interim with the wrong people, you're going to have that company revert to the mean. It's only going to be a matter of time. But you have a team with the right people, then it's just a matter of time that reverts to the mean, and that contribution and that effort and all those results driven finally show. That's number one. Number two, which is an easier question to answer, I'll answer it structurally. So we're in South Carolina, and in South Carolina, we do things on the U.S. side. What we do on the U.S. side is we take deals that Wall Street doesn't want to take. Wall Street doesn't want to touch deals under $10 million. There's not enough in it for them, okay? But we take those deals that are smaller, and that fits in with, U.S.-style crowdfunding as far as what the U.S. defines as crowdfunding, okay? So that's what we do in the U.S. market, okay? Then we've got Andrea, and she is now the head of Latin America marketing. I don't think it'll be long before you see a Relex Brazil.
Wow, Relex Brazil?
Yes. So that's two. Then we've got Relex Belarus, which Artem pretty much just told you about. And I think that there's a whole lot of opportunity that we can have here. We had amateur developers come up to us. When I mean amateur, as far as you don't know them, they don't have this like global name, but they built a couple supermarkets. They built a couple apartment buildings, and they have a new project. One guy is building a development right next to a castle that I thought was pretty interesting. But when I asked, how much do you need? These amounts are all small. If they went to Wall Street would laugh at them and say, go somewhere else to get this money, right? So there's a space right there that we can really, really tap into. And what we found out is that during the conference today, I think that the smaller developers were basically like really jumping at the chance to work with us. Basically, they were like, here are our projects, here, look, are they good enough? And we said, well, yeah, we'll assess them, we'll make sure that, it runs to a certain standard. But there's a big chance to help small real estate developers turn into bigger ones. So there's that. Okay. On the other side of things, it's really the migration of the private equity portfolio deals that we have had and moving that onto the blockchain. But doing that, it's a different model, it's a different approach, you're contacting different investors. I just listed today on the proxy developer platform, if anybody has seen that yet in the last couple hours. I said that really for these big deals, we need to still, through the private equity route, find the cornerstone investors. And then once we have the cornerstone investors, we announce, okay, do you know what a cornerstone investor is? It is someone that will, they'll anchor, I'll invest in 25% of the project or 30%. And what that means is that other people invest because they're like, well, we have a huge institutional investor that already invested in this. It must be safe. This is something that I'd be willing to participate in, right? So that's a way to solve how to fund these bigger deals and to do so in blockchain, to do so in this sort of environment. But what I realized here in Belarus, nobody here has heard in any depth whatsoever about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or anything like that. There's this meme going around that everybody is already over and everybody already knows. That's not true. Maybe it is in the US. When you move to these other countries, it's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
So, me has never ran across cryptocurrency before. Hence, they're very willing to give this a shot. We have 2 cryptocurrency pilots running in Myanmar now. If you guys are on the proxy developer platform, you'll know about this, okay? So our community right now is designing for rollout and implementation 2 cryptocurrency pilot programs in Myanmar alone.
Wow.
The people who are, I would say, country centric, as far as they're only looking around their own neighborhood, they're only looking around their whole country. There's entire blind spots all over the world. If I lay out the next countries where we're going to, you're going to be like, you're going where? These countries have never really been touched by cryptocurrency yet. And you know what? There are cases where I really have been having a feeling that we may very well be the first cryptocurrency that industry or that region or that area has touched or experienced, because they never experienced it. The Bitcoin wave never really got to them. And so now
the Bitcoin wave can be with Relic.
What?
It could be the Relics wave coming to those regions. I've seen it from a whole different perspective as an investor.
I don't usually like to talk about this, but we've been in operation for a year. Every once in a while, I'll say something interesting. There's a game of Go in Chinese. The whole purpose of the name of Go, how do you win that game? You have to occupy the spaces that your competitor thinks is unimportant. And the result is that you end up filling the board. So nobody was focusing on Vietnam. Nobody was focusing on Belarus. Not a single cryptocurrency here. Nobody is focusing on all these spaces. And we've just been noticing that it's just a wide open space.
Wow.
So
Very interesting.
really encouraging. Naturally, I can't tell you as far as the next countries that we're going to, but we have identified other blind spots, and we are moving on them.
Awesome. That's a great answer to that question. Love. That's a very well put. Keith,
Thank you, Magna.
looking at Relics, I like to look at things like 5, 10 years from now. Where do you see Relics 5 to 10 years from now?
I am telling you that Oksana has a plan on rolling out the full nationalization of our program within this country. And plan B, or the second step, goes from there. There's been some very substantial conversations that we finally feel comfortable to talk about. And yeah, the way that cryptocurrencies are going to survive is by embedding them into the institutions that they are fighting with at this very moment. Everybody's trying to replace rather than integrate.
Yeah.
When you go to the airport of a specific country, the first ad that you should see is a cryptocurrency ad. If you're serious about full implementation of full nationalization, and you're not just doing this as a fad or a hobby or something like this, and you see real gains that you can actually make small developers bigger. You can have bigger developers that can access investors that have never heard or before had access to their kind of investments that they had before. And you're talking about doing that, you have to institutionalize it. There's got to be a Relex option on an ATM somewhere in Belarus or in Vietnam. There's got to be a sense that this is a part of the national system. This is what you participate in when you access real estate. Anybody who's serious about doing this needs to approach it in that way. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. It's just a fad.
Awesome. I mean, just giving a lot of great answers, and I mean, seeing now Relics from a different perspective and seeing it and the way you're explaining it. I mean, it's really exciting, really exciting. Just to come to a close, um, any last words you have for the viewers, or anything that you would want to share? It doesn't even have to be crypto. It doesn't even have to be relics. Um, Anything that you feel in your heart that you want to share with everybody. Uh,
I would
right now
say
you got the floor.
a roller coaster year, if there ever was one.
Yeah.
Not only in my life, but I'm sure in the lives of many, 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 many in our community. And through and through, we've been through a lot. And I've noticed that there has been so many that have stuck with us. I'm not even talking about holding or not holding. I don't care about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about how they said, you know what? At the end of the day, I know you guys are going to get this done. And Peter Lee doesn't roll out of bed anymore. Jumps out of bed. I think that this whole experience has been so energizing for the entire team and for us to do business like this. I had a vision when I was little that, maybe I'll be like one of those guys that are just flying around the world like I saw at Chicago International Airport, when I was young. And I internalized that a little bit. But then I always saw how miserable those guys were, how stressed they were, that guys that would have heart attacks at, 40, 45 years old. And then started thinking to myself, I was like, well, that shouldn't be what life is about. But look at what we have. Look at this box where we're at. We are doing a live stream event. We have, live people following us. We have live feedback after the event over on social media, right? Our fathers or parents would have never expected business was going to be like this. And
Right.
really, as far as where we are, this is an exhilarating business to be in. And it doesn't matter what the results are on the day-to-day. Remember how I said it matters what team that you have. It matters what people they are. It doesn't matter about the interim business results, bull market, bear, company getting bigger, company getting smaller. It doesn't matter about any of that. When you actually have this kind of environment, it gives you this like ironclad purpose. And I think that's really what's been driving the team. And I think that the purpose has come from the community. That I think that we never thought that this was going to be as important as it is. And I think it's probably the first and last thing that each of us think about every day and every night before we go to sleep. So I just want to say, community, I usually don't say this, but, thank you for giving us purpose. And we can't wait to show you what we have in store next.
Awesome. All right, Keith. Awesome interview. Great answers, man. I feel so
great.
much.
Mac.
It's been a pleasure, Keith. A pleasure. Thank you so much. Hopefully we can do this again.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me on, Mac.
Thank you. All right. Till next time. All right, Keith. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.